Okay, so first of all, I want to have a data point for every single gold medal that was won by the United Kingdom in the Olympics in every year. And in order to do that, I need each year to repeat the number of times that a gold medal was won in that year. And in order to do that, I need to work out what the first position of each year will be. So I will insert a new column here, and then in the first row, I will put the number 1. Then I'll do equals this number plus this number here. And then double click to send that formula down. And so the first year will start in position 1 and it will repeat 2 times. Then the next year will start in position 3 and it will repeat 15 times. Then the next year will start in position 18. And as only one gold medal was won in 1904, that will repeat only once, and then the next year will start in position 19. And that pattern will continue down the rest of the table. And then I need to drag this formula one more row down, as this number here is the position where 2020 will start, but I also need to know where it will end, so I have to add 22 to this in order to get to the number 286. Now I will create a series of numbers going from 1 to 286, and I will do this using the fill series. I will fill the series in columns. The step value will be 1, so it will increase by 1 each time. Then the stop value will be 286, and OK. And now I have a series of numbers going from 1 to 286. Now that I have this series of numbers, I can use a VLOOKUP formula to get the years to repeat the correct number of times. So the lookup value will be this value here. Then the table array will be these 2 columns. And I'll press F4 to put the dollar signs around these cell references, to make them absolute cell references so they won't change when I send the formula down. Then the column index number will be 2, as I want to show the results from the second column. Then the range lookup will be true for an approximate match. And then enter and double click to send the formula down. So in the first row, it's looking for the number 1 in the first column, and then it's showing me the results from the second column. So I get the year 1896. Then in the next row, it's looking for the number 2, but it can't find the number 2 in the first column, and so it will search for the closest value, which is lower. And that is how the approximate match works in the VLOOKUP formula. So in this case, it will find the number 1, and I will end up with the year 1896 again. So the year 1896 repeats 2 times, as 2 gold medals were won in that year. Then the year 1900 repeats 15 times, as 15 gold medals were won in that year. And it goes from position 3 to position 17. And then in position 18, I get the year 1904. And as only 1 gold medal was won in that year, it only repeats once. Then that pattern continues down the rest of the table. And I actually have 1 extra row at the bottom of this table, as I added 1 at the beginning of the table, so I can delete this row here. Now that I have the years repeating the correct number of times, this will become the X values, and the Y values for the time being, I'm just going to put the number 1 and then double click to send that all the way down the table. Now I will select both of these columns and use Control Backspace to get back up to the top of the range, and then go to Insert and insert a scatter chart. At the moment, it looks like each year has just 1 data point, but that's because at the moment they all have the same Y value. So the data points for each year are all stacked on top of each other. We need to spread these data points out so we can actually see the differences between the different years. And in order to do that, I'm going to create 2 more columns. One will be the total count, and the other will be the running count. For the total count, we will use the COUNTIF formula, and the range will be the columns with the years in it. And I'll press F4 to put the dollar signs around this range to make these an absolute cell reference so that it doesn't change when I send the formulas down. Then the criteria will be this cell here. So in this case, it's counting how many times the year 1896 appears in this table, and it appears 2 times, so I get the number 2. And then in this cell, for example, it's counting how many times the year 1900 appears, and it is there 15 times, so I get the number 15. And I get the number 15 repeated 15 times until we get to 1904 here, and then we get the number 1. And so this column here has the same numbers as this column here, which is the number of gold medals won in each year. Then for the running count, we will again use the COUNTIF formula, and this time the range will be this cell here, and then I'll type a colon and it will automatically put in the same cell reference again. Then I'll select the first cell reference and press F4 to make this an absolute cell reference so that it doesn't change when I send the formula down. However, the second cell reference is still a relative cell reference, so this will change when I send the formula down, and so the range is going to expand as we go down the table. Then the criteria will be this cell here again. So at the moment, it's counting how many times the year 1896 appears in this range, and it only appears there once, so we get the number 1. Then I'll double click to send this formula down. In the next row, the range has expanded to 2 cells, and it's counting how many times the year 1896 appears in this range, and it is there 2 times. Then in the next row, the range has expanded to 3 cells, and it's counting how many times the year 1900 appears in this range, and it appears there once. Then in the next row, the range has expanded to 4 cells, and it's counting how many times the year 1900 appears in this range, and it appears there twice, so I get the number 2. And the number increases by 1 each time until we get to 15, and then we go back to 1 when it is counting how many times the year 1904 appears. Now I will select this series here, and I will drag this range across, so it's now plotting the running count. And this spreads out all of the data points so we can now see the number of medals won in each year. However, at the moment, they are all aligned to the bottom, and I want for them to be aligned to the middle. In order to do this, for the year with the maximum number of medals here, this needs to stay in the same place, but for all of the other years, the data points need to be shifted upwards. So for this year here, for example, I want for the middle data point in this year to be shifted upwards until it lines up with the middle data point in this year. Then for this year, I want for this data point to be shifted upwards until it lines up with the middle data point in this year. And so the years with a larger number of medals need to be shifted up by a smaller amount, and the years with a smaller number of medals need to be shifted upwards by a larger amount. So in order to do this, I'm going to add some space to the bottom of this chart, and I will first calculate the maximum number of medals won in a year. And I'll select this column here and then press F4 to make that an absolute cell reference. And this gets me the number 56. Then I'll take the maximum number of medals won in a year and I'll subtract the total count. And this is the number of medals won in each year. And then double click to send that formula down. And now in this column, the years where a larger number of medals were won have a smaller number, and the years where a smaller number of medals were won have a larger number. Then I'll create a new column here for the Y values, and they will be the running count plus the space. and then double click to send this formula down. Then I'll select the series and drag the range across again. And this shifts all of the data points up, but they are now all aligned to the top, because I don't actually want to take the maximum minus the number of medals. I want to take this number and divide it by 2. As I don't want to shift the data points all of the way up to the top, I want to shift them up only half of the way. And then I'll double click to send this formula down, and now all of the data points are aligned to the center. Now at the moment, the year with the maximum number of medals here is still touching the x-axis at the bottom, and I don't actually like the way this looks, so I'm going to add a little bit extra onto all of these data points to shift them up slightly more. And then I'll end up with a little bit of a gap at the bottom here. Now all of the rest of this is just formatting. Okay, so in this video I have shown you how to make a center aligned jitter plot in Excel, and that is everything.